welcome to the Pop Off PC Mag's video game show. I'm Jordan Miner, and today we've gathered a whole group of PC Mag analysts who are cursed to care about video games to talk about the 1-year anniversary of next-gen consoles. It's been a whole year since the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S launched. Very crazy, but the launch of a new console generation is always a momentous thing. So we're kind of looking back on it, talking about the year it's been and where it's kind of going, and just sort of thoughts and impressions and stuff like that. So Gabe, I want to start with you because this is one, your pop-off debut, and two, you don't have any of the next-gen consoles, I believe, right?
Well, I treated myself to a Series X for Christmas, but I haven't opened it yet because I don't really have anything to play currently. I mean, Halo is coming out in a couple of days, but
I guess could you talk more about that decision, like why you waited and why you went with X?
Sure. Well, the honest truth is that there wasn't really anything in the next gen consoles worth playing that I couldn't already play on PC. So that is, I suppose, the curse of being a PC gamer is that most of these games are multi-plat anyways. So you're usually better off just grabbing whatever you can from Steam or Epic if you have to. So as far as next gen games to come out, Dark Souls? No, it was Demon Souls, right? For PlayStation, Ratchet and Clank, as far as exclusives go, and now Halo for the Xbox Series X. So there was no real. What was that?
Isn't that coming to Windows too?
Yeah,
Halo is also coming out on PC, so there's also no real reason. To be honest with you, my logic for getting the Series X was the Game Pass. That I think is the critical sort of point in Xbox's favor, Microsoft's favor, is that you have a massive, massive catalog of backwards compatible games that really make that system appealing. However, if that is the appeal, you can also just as easily settle for the Xbox One X and get pretty solid results from that. I mean, yeah, you get better performance from the Series X, but you don't need to get one either. So if you have a One X, you could kind of just, sail along with that for the meantime.
I will say the backwards compatibility is not perfect though, because I cannot play Sneak King on my Series X.
That's not a technology problem. That's just fast food espionage. It's McDonald's.
It's a systemic problem.
Yeah,
I need to play Sneak King.
Yeah, it runs deeper than that. Yeah, I was gonna say my logic was similar there to piggyback off that. Like I have a PS5 and high-end gaming PC, so the Xbox in particular feels redundant with that. Like if you're going to get one of the consoles and you have a good PC, I feel like the PS5 because there's games that are only there, right? So you can't really play them anywhere else. Not a ton, but there are games that are only there. So I felt like that was the obvious combo. But even then, because of the appeal you mentioned of the Series X and Game Pass, is like that would be a really easy way to play the same games I'm playing on my PC, but in the living room on the couch. It's like, well, I have it on Game Pass. I want to continue it in there on Game Pass. You know what I mean? So that's kind of that. I do get the appeal of that, especially if you can get a good deal or a sale on one or whatever it is. That is kind of an appealing combination. But yeah, I think the holy trinity of PC, Switch, and PS5 has served me pretty well so far.
How have you been enjoying that PS5? No, that was my segue, so there you go.
Perfect. Moderately, I think playing a couple games that we had played on PS4 also in and of itself is like, wow, this loads so much faster. That's nice. Obviously not enough of a reason on its own to get a console, right? But it is nice. You sit through long loading screens on RPGs, or every time you go inside to outside, has to load environments and stuff. That's all way, way, way quicker. And then stuff like Ratchet and Clank, which can kind of actually make use of that in a gameplay mechanic sort of sense. But otherwise, I'm not playing a ton on it. Like there's Spider-Man, a couple of these things that are on both PS4 and PS5, even if PS5 is the obvious way to go. Not a ton of exclusives. It's still kind of my go-to thing to like play FIFA with my friends. It's like, that's what we all have. So that's kind of why I want a console as well. But not a huge library of games. I often feel like I don't use it quite as much as I should. But between myself and my girlfriend, we play a good amount of games on the TV, together.
Now, Will, you reviewed both, all three technically, and you have both. What's that been like having both of them? Is there one you favor more than the other? Like, what's your take a year later?
To start just at the bottom of the page, I play the Switch more than both of them.
Okay.
Period.
Okay.
But the PS5 is really amazing from a technical level. The Series X is also really good and is a great, not quite desktop replacement. I know even implying that is going to get a lot of PC fans very angry.
We don't care about PC fans here at PCMag.com.
But I'm kind of in the PC situation of like, I have a gaming notebook that is 3 or 4 years old. So it has a GTX 1070 and the kind of weird thermal issues that can come up when you have a gaming notebook that's a few years old, and that when I try running something, sometimes the back gets really hot and it just shuts down physically. So having the Series X to play a lot of really good PC games really smoothly is great. And yeah, it costs way less than a gaming notebook. But yeah, honestly, the Switch, I mean, I can just look at the games I have on my list now. Shin Megami Tensei 5 came out. Metroid Dread, fantastic. The release of Nocturne, Monster Hunter Rise. There have just been way more great Switch games I've been into. But, you know, it's the first year for the Series X and the PS5. Microsoft has gone weird of not really having actual exclusives for the Series X. So that's just a factor. And PS5's exclusives have been excellent, but few. So standard first year of a system. And we're going to see a lot better stuff next year. And just it takes at least a year for these new systems to really get rolling anyway. Like,
right. And that's in a normal year. That's in a year without a pandemic and, you know, supply chain issues and chip.
Yeah, it feels like they've been out longer, even in some sense. I know it's only been a year, I think, because time is so nebulous right now in general. But yeah, it feels like they've been out a bit longer. Like, oh, yeah, I should probably, you know, recalibrate my expectations somewhat, given how sparse some launch years actually have been in the past. A moderate number of good games to play at each. I think Xbox will mention not having a ton of exclusives. I think they've, as we all know, gotten more proactive about acquiring studios and churning things out. And like Forza Horizon 5 has been such a big hit. Again, though, available on PC, but not everyone has a PC up to snuff. So that's just the reality.
Yeah, like for me, the Series X is just a good alternative because my computer still works, just not as well for gaming anymore. So like I don't want to throw it out and replace it and spend like $2,000 on a really good gaming notebook. So the Series X lets me play these games that are otherwise on PC.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was actually going to reiterate. That's more or less the same feeling I got. Was it's like an extension of your PC in many ways. It's like, yeah, it doesn't have an exclusive library of games, but the catalog that you get with, you know, Game Pass is more than substantial. Like you could play old games for ages, and they just I think they finally expanded it one last time just a couple of weeks ago. So you have even more. You can play Otogi now, which I've been itching to play for a long time. So that's great. I think the only games that I want to play that I can't are Anarchy Reigns, and that's pretty much it. Other than that, like the catalog is so like excellent. You really could play that for ages and not have to worry about new games. But granted, you still have Halo coming out. So
and I think that kind of speaks to something of the shift we've kind of seen mostly on Microsoft, but kind of across the board, is this idea that like not just an extension of your PC, but just like what matters is getting you into an ecosystem, whichever avenue into it. They don't really care. So
who could have predicted that Microsoft wanted to get us into an ecosystem?
Right, but they're like finally doing it.
Yeah,
they're like finally doing it.
They did.
And you know, we've seen again like all this also like just compare how they do cross-gen stuff with Sony. Like Sony, there's on the PS5, there's all this confusion about like you could technically download the PS4 version of a game to your PS5, but that is different than the PS5 version. Versus this kind of smart delivery stuff that we've seen.
I do think Microsoft is kind of dragging them along on some of this stuff. Like they got to have more, you know, backwards compatibility. They got to have more cloud, some kind offering in sync and all that stuff. So that's a good example of some competition doing something for the other.
Right.
There are definitely some weird like attitude issues between Sony and Microsoft. Just, you know, concepts like crossplay and just who's open to what. But I do think it is kind of great and fascinating to contrast Xbox and Steam because, you know, PC gaming works on both of them, and the Xbox platform, like they used to be need to go through the Microsoft store to play games through Microsoft, and just like they're trying to keep it separate from Steam, and it still is, but then they just didn't quite give up, but they have kind of given up with Game Pass of just saying, okay, you don't need to buy games from us. Just pay us subscription money and you can play any of these games. Just stop using Steam.
Right.
And
stream it on your phone, stream it on your old Xbox now. They added that.
I'll tell you what I'd love to see in the coming year: an Xbox cloud gaming app on the Switch.
That would be great.
If only.
If
Well, you played Control streaming on the Switch, right? Didn't you review that?
Yes, I did. I was actually just thinking about that because I played that Guardians of the Galaxy game that's also on. I didn't play it on Switch, but that's also cloud streaming. I heard it's been kind of inconsistent, those cloud games on Switch. Some of them have worked a lot better than others. I thought Control was great, but then I played all of Hitman, and that was kind of iffy. But also Hitman had its own server issues, no matter what console you played it on. But yeah, just the cloud streaming stuff for sure. But not to get too Microsoft centric here, when we talk about exclusives this year, not that there were that many, but the ones that matter are like Sony, like it's Ratchet and Nintendo, but Nintendo, the next gen stuff. But it's Ratchet, it's the Spider-Man stuff from launch, Demon Souls remake, the Returnal even was a game that people talked about.
Returnal, yeah.
All their kind of PS5 remaster stuff they did this year, like Death Stranding and Ghost of Tsushima and Final Fantasy VII whatever it's called.
Something like that.
Something like that.
Death Stranding on PC.
It is. It is. I played on PC. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, I still think they have an edge in terms of that big marquee first party stuff. Because Halo is huge, but also Halo was delayed an entire year, and that's that and Forza are kind of like finally these big. And Psychonauts I know we liked a lot too, but that was on everything. But finally, like these kind of big tentpole Microsoft properties. So I still think Sony has an edge there. But
the launch exclusive Demon Souls remake, which is fascinating because it's a game that's mechanically like 10, 15 years old. And I probably like these games more than any of you, and even I don't super like them that much. Like lots
of people like them though. So you're not.
Yeah, I was gonna say I do think maybe it's just because some of them aren't to my taste, but I do think a lot more of Sony's exclusive are specific to niche audiences, not necessarily the same audience, but like a lot of the big titles are like these fans really look forward to this game. And I saw something saying like obviously the Soul series is super influential and everything, but it's come to multiple platforms, but it's also like it has not sold as many copies as you might think relative to how much it has a mind share sort of in like discussion and influence on other games and all that. So that's just like kind of an interesting facet. It's not actually like it's a successful series for sure, but it's not like a mega millions copies sort of franchise.
I would push back on that a little bit. I think Souls, yes, but I think when you think of like Spider-Man and Ratchet and Clank and like the Naughty Dog stuff, I think that's
I guess most of their Japanese dev stuff is what I'm thinking of.
Well, they have like no Japanese devs left anymore.
That's why.
But I think like their strength is that when normal people think of like a big expensive video game that's not like Nintendo, like I think that they're in their mind's eye is thinking of a Sony game.
Yeah, that's true.
The Demon Souls remake is one of the most absurdly polished games like ever. Which is weird because it is so polished that I played the Elden Ring, which is an upcoming for next year exclusive for PlayStation. I played the network test, and the Demon Souls remake was made by another company, Bluefin, I think.
Blue Point.
Blue
Point. Yeah.
They did the Shadow of the Colossus remaster, I think.
And they're amazing at polishing things, and it shows. And From Software is making Elden Ring, and From Software does not polish games kind of at all. They just kind of build them up, and then when they come to a deadline, they figure out what they can get out to make it playable, which is one of the reasons people love it. But feeling Elden Ring feeling like a generation behind the Demon Souls remake is fascinating because it feels like it runs on the Dark Souls 3 engine, and I'm still really excited about it. But
they put so much work into the content that's new in that game, the world and stuff, that they were like, okay, well, here's these animations, like that's what we, that's
I'm gonna put a pin in this Elden Ring discussion because we have a whole segment about 2022, and also to push the eject on talking about Souls games. Talk about something that I find more important. These consoles, I still think, are hideous. A year later, they're so ugly.
Yep.
I have an Xbox Series S. That's the one that I wound up with, and I think that is, it's less expensive. There's no disk drive. It's less powerful. So there's knocks against it. Blah blah blah. But it's the only one of them that is not like. I would not feel just completely embarrassed to have in my like entertainment center as an adult man. So I don't know. I feel like I'm correct.
I think there's your problem.
Okay.
As an adult man, like you get that out of your head.
True.
I agree.
But,
the PS5 is enormous and hideous. The Xbox is like, it's big, but it's kind of this nondescript like box. The PS5 is like, I'm here to have a design, and it's hard to miss.
Yeah,
it's actually fascinating, and we'll be looking at it later. This thing called Dark Plates. It's a company that makes like shells that you can just redo the PS5 in. And they had like some legal issues with Sony for the first generation of them, to the point that they're now selling like this redesigned that's not just completely based on the PS5 shell, and that they're sort of mocking Sony of saying like, yeah, this is just different enough. You can't sue us anymore. Who wants to buy these shells? And I'll be trying out in the coming weeks, maybe slapping a completely black shell on it, which it'll still be shaped ugly, but I think it'll look better than this weird black and white monstrosity.
Gabe, you about to say something?
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's this hideous black and white monstrosity is pretty much word for word what I was going to say.
Yeah,
So it's
so big, and it's awkward to put on its side, and it's just an odd thing. I appreciate to an extent having like an actual design idea of being like futuristic, and like has these lights on the side which are kind of neat when it's on, but it's huge and it's ugly. At the end of the day, it's ugly.
It reminds me of when they were talking about the PS3, the idea that they gave it that like rounded top so that you can't put anything on top of it, which is like such arrogant and like bordering on antagonistic way to design a product. It's almost like it's like anti-homeless architecture in a way. But yeah,
my PS4 is my second monitor stand at this point, so I'm glad it's not curved.
But you know, they'll make new revisions of these at some point. Maybe even in 2022 we'll get a PS5 Slim. It's inevitable that they'll make new versions of these. But before we get into 2022, just as it stands right now, like gut check, you know, who's winning the console war? Is it Sega?
It's been Sega all along.
Yeah.
I would say at this point, in terms of buzz and positivity and trending in the correct direction, I'd have to say Microsoft. I think Game Pass has nearly universally become this sort of like, this is really cool and a really good deal. How could you not be on Game Pass sort of thing, especially with the crossplay on PC and the Xbox, we have both. Just kind of all around hard to argue against as a value, and gives you a ton of games to play. And that alone doesn't really, you know, justify or say they should win, but I think between the console being pretty good and performing well generally and not being as ugly as the PS5, that's sort of a win. And now they have these big titles like Halo and Forza that are really bolstering the idea that Game Pass is worthwhile. It's like now, and here's the headliners, because it's been pretty good all along for indie games and smaller games and stuff you might not want to buy, but now it's like, and these giant, big, great releases are on this platform at no additional cost to you. So I think right now Microsoft sort of has the narrative win, the sort of zeitgeist. But at the beginning, Sony probably had more games worth talking about.
Gabe, you just bought an Xbox, so I assume that's, you know, you're
I was going to say that I think Sony got off to a great start, but I feel like Microsoft caught up pretty well, just because of how good of a value the Game Pass really is. Like, there's no reason not to own Game Pass or not to subscribe to Game Pass if you have an Xbox, is my stance. And I think that inherent value is just kind of elevating the console and the brand as a whole. It's like the service to beat as far as video game services go. Like Nintendo and Sony both have to catch up in that regard, because, like, for example, we all love Switch Online, but they rolled out that terrible update a few weeks ago. That's just all that goodwill that they fostered over the past year just kind of went down the drain, because no one wants to subscribe for, what is it, 50 or like 50 for a single, or 80 for a family for N64 games that don't even run well on the system that they're being emulated on. Why would I pay that money when I could just as easily pay $120 for Game Pass Ultimate, get online and a free access to any game that I want to play on the Xbox catalog? It just makes more sense to me. And Sony doesn't really have the equivalent that I could think of. They've tried in the past, but nothing really hit the mark.
Plus, and now for the older stuff, but not nearly as much.
It's not the same thing. This is the theoretical Netflix for games, right? That
they
sort
did
of like people wanted for a long time, and it's here now, and arguably a better value than Netflix, given how much stuff has had to flee that service for its respective creator owned content service like Disney Plus and everything else like that. So
Game Pass doesn't have Love is Blind though. So
that's so true. That's so true.
Will, what do you think? Where are you at?
I'm not saying any of them are losing, but I can't really say any of them are winning either, because
that's a smart answer. But then, but we got to anger people. We got to rile up the blood.
Xbox and Microsoft definitely, it's sort of the most compelling value as a concept, especially with the Game Pass. And just if you want kind of a PC gaming experience, just gamepad based and costing a fraction as much, the Series X or Series S even works great. And with Game Pass Ultimate, you have a ton of games that are worth playing. But its problem is, as a concept, there aren't really any exclusives that aren't otherwise on PC. So it's not really the same thing. Sony, they got some amazing exclusives, but way too few. And they have this kind of weird arrogance when it comes to crossplay and just the ugly design, which makes putting it anywhere really difficult. It is so tall. It is just it is not in my entertainment center. It is next to it because it won't fit.
And mine is on top of it because it doesn't fit in the boxes, the squares that everything else fit in.
And Nintendo is the most amazing game company at doing a few things that are incredibly brilliant and compelling, and then screwing it up by doing some other things that are completely confusing. Mm-hmm. Just the very structure of their Switch Online stuff. Okay, it's great, fantastic. NES and Super Nintendo games, that's good. It's been 4 years. There's no virtual console. So there are hundreds and hundreds of games that you can play on this tablet, in terms of power, but Nintendo's just not letting us get to them, which is weird because they put out so many games on the 3DS and Wii U for the virtual console. And also the fact that it is still 4 years old, and this is it's blurry, but this is showing its age, because new games like Shin Megami Tensei 5, you see them chug, and you can solve it with cloud gaming if you have the internet connection to play things like Control, but they are running into a wall when it comes to processing power, and that they have just released this OLED Switch, which doesn't have any more power, which means we might see a Switch Pro, Switch Plus, whatever next year, but that's a big maybe. They are once again lagging behind really far in terms of processing, which is its own issue. So everyone is screwing up in their own unique way.
There we go. Everyone, that's great message of unity. I will say, for most of this year with Sony, but I think Halo is shaping up to be as good as it is, could single-handedly change the entire conversation, which is what they want, which is what they needed it to do. Which is why
it did for the original Xbox.
They did, yeah. So they delayed an entire year to do exactly this, but I think it looks like it will actually do that, which is kind of exciting to see.
Mm-hmm. Forza's great too.
It's good. It's cool. I want, there's some things that could be better. But so that's enough of this year. We're almost in 2022. There are some things that could happen. We alluded to Switch Pros and whatnot. But let's talk about things that we know are happening, games that we know are coming out that we think we're excited for. We think will be big. We talked about Elden Ring a little bit. Anyone have any of their takes on that, or I'm happy to not talk about that game anymore.
I'm excited.
It looks promising.
Yeah.
I'm not a Souls fan, but I can see why people who like those games that appeals to them.
No, you're a George R.R. Martin fan.
That's right.
After playing the network test, I still have no idea where any of the George R.R. Martin writing could possibly be, because structurally, in terms of the narrative, the framing story, it is the most Souls game possible. It is playing Mad Libs of, you are the blank who came to this land to find blank, and now you need to upgrade through the Maiden of Blank at different blanks that light up around, and when you sit at those places they respawn, and also there is random word fingers that let you summon other people, and just it's so From Software Mad Libs. Just they come up with weird words for the same concept in each game.
And when there is an NPC dialogue, it's the same sort of vaguely mysterious sort of, talking in rhymes and talking in, vagaries and that it doesn't seem like a lot of written world building, like you said, but it's a lot of environmental and kind of passive world building. And that is different than wordy Game of Thrones for sure.
But just the concept of open world for that style of gameplay is really compelling in its own way, and I think is going to be a lot more accessible than the standard sort of Souls specific dungeon crawling structure that we're so used to.
That is next month, right? That January?
February?
February?
I think they pushed it to
Q1.
February, but
Okay.
yeah.
So we'll find out
February 25th.
pretty soon on that one. We talked about these big Sony exclusives, and next year they got Horizon Forbidden West. That got pushed to next year. That God of War Ragnarok will probably come out next year.
God of War and Monster Hunter Rise both launching on PC starting in January right away. So
okay, but the original got not the
new one.
Yeah, the original, right.
There's a Gran Turismo, right? Isn't there a new Gran Turismo?
7. Yeah, Gran Turismo 7, I think. I don't have anything to say except that's nice. I'm happy with Forza, but Gran Turismo, good job.
Yep.
That Spider-Man sequel might be a next holiday thing.
Might
maybe?
squeeze in, yeah.
Yeah, Venom's cool.
Tony Todd plays Venom. That's pretty funny.
The new Destiny expansion. I know all of you are looking forward to that.
Sure.
I forgot they still made those.
I haven't touched it in probably the longest I've not touched 2 at this point, because I got a little sick of how their current whole situation works. But I might jump back into try this expansion. Thematically, it looks very cool. Horizon. There's a Dying Light is what I was thinking of. Is finally out. Dying Light 2. It's been in development forever. It's coming out in February.
Is that a platform exclusive?
I think it's on everything.
I think it's on Switch cloud streaming. So they ported the first from native. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good port.
Yeah, I think the original Dying Light was like kind of a really underrated zombie game, like in the sea of like, Dead Rising as it was itself dying with 3 and 4, and Last of Us. Like Dying Light, I think played the best of all of them.
I agree. That game was a lot of fun, parkour wise and zombie action wise.
What does Microsoft have for next year? Their thing. So Starfield is next.
I was going to say Starfield's supposed to come out in November next year. I don't know.
They put a very specific date on it.
They did. It's like the 11th of November. I don't know about that. We'll see.
Didn't they announce? I mean, the acquisition of Bethesda. Aren't they working on something? Did I forget? I feel like I'm forgetting something.
I don't know what else would come out from them before Starfield next year. Because they're doing Elder Scrolls 6. They have that.
But that's like tentative, right? That's not really like, it's nebulous. We don't really know when that's coming out, right?
Yeah, I think it's just Starfield.
That Redfall game from Arcane. I'd probably see Deathloop on Xbox next year.
I'd honestly be really surprised to see Elder Scrolls 6 before like the next game generation, so they can port Skyrim to that and then put out Elder Scrolls 6.
That's right.
Probably true. There's a lot of games I think that have no specific date, which might mean they won't launch at all next year. But yeah, so far it's not exactly like super fleshed out.
Our mistake was filming this before the Jeff Keighley Awards, where I'm sure everything dropped.
Right. I wouldn't go that. So I mean, I'm looking forward to Bayonetta 3.
Yeah,
true.
That's a big one, but that's Switch. But I mean, who cares? It's Bayonetta 3, and I've been really looking forward to that. And it looks like a very big step forward for the series, just because it doesn't seem to be reusing any assets from Bayonetta 1. It looks like it's an all-new game. It's got a new graphical style, new enemies, new mechanics, really looking promising. Obviously, Zelda 2 or whatever they're going to call Breath of the Wild 2, but that's also Switch. Star Ocean, I wrote a whole spiel on that. That looks like a hot mess. So I don't know.
It's a Star Ocean sequel.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, wasn't the last good one 2?
The last good one, I mean, yeah, if you want to be technical, story-wise, I think 2. Gameplay-wise, I think 3. And then that's like hard cut off right there. You can't really debate that the rest were any good. Stranger of Paradise.
All right. Final Fantasy Limp Bizkit or whatever.
Yeah,
Linkin Park.
That looks really fun and goofy and silly. And I didn't know it was co-op. I didn't know it allowed, because I thought it was all single player with AI allies. And then I was talking with my brother about it over Thanksgiving, and he was like, no, this co-op was confirmed. I was like, what, really? So you can play online and relive Final Fantasy 1 Limp Bizkit style?
Yeah.
With your
His name
buddies
is Jack
online.
Garland.
Jack Garland.
I'm so excited to enjoy it, ironically, unironically. Like, I just want to bathe in whatever the writing for this is going to be, because it looks amazing.
Yeah.
We started touching on Switch stuff a little bit. January is Pokemon Legends Arceus, which I think will be the shape of what we want a Pokemon game to be,
Right.
and we'll be like 2/3 of the way there as far as like execution.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting a whiff of like not quite what I actually want out of it gameplay wise, realistically. But as you said, conceptually, it's like the cookie cutter outline of like, yeah, do that with Pokemon.
Right.
So
I'd still put good money on it having like the same structure as any mainline Pokemon game, because like even with Sword and Shield, they're like, no, there are open places you can go through. It's like, yeah, you're still going through highways and you need to go to like 8 gyms and then blah, blah, blah. It's like, I don't know if even for like Legends, they're going to do that. Maybe it's you need to go to the first gyms ever in the world of Pokemon, but you'll still need to go to 8 of them, then beat the champion.
I mean, it looks like it'll be like, people compare it to Monster Hunter, where it's kind of like these discrete, not one big open world, but these kind of discrete open zones, like a whole game made up of like distinct wild areas, which
seems that way.
Progress in a sense. It's just slow progress.
Yeah, it's like with Arceus, it's like do that, but better. More of that, please, and then we'll see. I don't know if this is the game to put your chips on, but maybe the next one.
Right. Which is what I said with Sword and Shield. Yeah, with the wild area and Sword and Shield. It's like, oh yeah, like this is where you need to go, but just go for this. It'll be good. They're on a good track because when they finally get to the Gen 5 remakes, it'll be good because that's the one set in America. So when they have Pokemon New York, totally open world, they'll be just on it'll be GTA 4, but with Pikachu in it.
Oh, let's not forget, early next year, depending on shipping and which kind you got, the Steam Deck.
The Steam Deck. Yeah. I'll play all my Sony games on my my Steam Deck.
That I think hopefully is good. I pre-ordered one. I wasn't interested in any of Valve's past hardware offerings, so I don't know what exactly. I think just the concept and proposition of this one in general appealed to me more. So I hope it's good. I don't know. Being able to play a lot of my PC games on the couch would be cool. That's pretty much all I got.
We did a whole Steam Deck discussion that we know that you're all interested in watching, so please keep watching that. But yeah, I mean, again, everything got delayed. Everything is still getting delayed. They haven't even told us about it yet. So like, stuff is so in flux. Trying to figure out next year is still kind of because also these games just take so long to make. So it's like games that would have started in like early 2020 probably got pushed back, and we're gonna be feeling the effects of this for like years and years. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But stuff will come out next year. We'll play it. We'll write about it. Anybody got any last thoughts? Any last games they want to shout out? They're looking forward to. Just Halo.
I think the Steam Deck was my aha thing. There's a bunch of games that are listed like the sometime in the year. I think they delayed the next gen remake of not remake, their next gen upgrade for Witcher. That's something that got pushed back. Stuff like that. There's a lot of things that could be cool. I don't know. There's a lot of cool indie games. A lot of them showed up at like the E3 like summer like showcase video. Between all those videos, there was a lot of cool indie game trailers, and I hope some of those games are good because a bunch of them are launching.
Has Hollow Knight Silksong gotten a release date yet?
Who knows? Nope.
Still no.
So that'll just come out. They'll be like, hey, it's out now. I think for that.
Yeah.
But, like Axiom Verge too. But yeah, So hope you all have a good new year. Hope anyone watching this has the best year they can as far as games and otherwise in your life. Buzzy, Gabe, Will, thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
And we'll talk to you next time.